that support that they needed from the beginning. So we created Launchbox, in tandem with Gateway, WIBIC, and the other organizations. That's one of the reasons, if you look at the number 4 rating, that is specifically pointed out as why we're considered number 4 in the country. What have we done from that? Launchbox has exceeded their first year's projections by 2 to 3 times what they're planning on doing. So we are doing it. We are working with those organizations. A lot of those organizations we're working with today to now tie them into revenue, to get them started. The one thing that they missed in the beginning is that capital, to get them started right out of the box. So we work with our angel investors and our different organizations to help them out. We announced some of those at the event that we just had out at Gateway at IMED last week. And one of the young ladies we talked to, we're already looking at seeing, she's a new entrepreneur, she created her own business, we're looking at if we can locate her in Uptown. So those partnerships happen every day. That's why we're seeing unemployment drop. That's why we're seeing a Launchbox going crazy with the amount of people joining it. And that's why we've had success in dropping unemployment and growing these new companies. I would argue not only are we doing a great job, but the rest of the world is seeing that we're doing a great job too.
Reverend Hargrove. Talk to some of the citizens. One great thing I've been able to do, even in this time, was to be able to talk to citizens about the concept of small business. Now, I know personally of someone who actually they were not able to start a small business, but now they're in Kenosha and they started a small business. Same person, same people. I've also talked with other individuals who I don't know personally, but they have known someone personally where people have gone down and they've not started a business, and they've gone to places like Burlington, Summers, and other places and started those businesses, and now they're doing well. Part of the problem is the processes that we go through when we get to City Hall. If I were mayor, one thing I would do is I would like to streamline that process to make sure that there is one process that they're going to, and that there's one person who will be responsible for the processes. It's almost like it's a pinball machine down there, from what I understand. That you get one thing done, you have to go somewhere else to get something else done, you have to go somewhere else to get something else done, and either way they can refuse you, and you have to go back, and no one has the outright directions on what needs to be done. And so I applaud the mayor if that's the case what's happening, but that's what I'm hearing. What I'm hearing is that there's been a hard time for people in small business to get some things going, and at this point I know of 1 or 2 personally that I've moved from here to Kenosha with the same business plan, and then I'm actually in business in Kenosha. And then I know others will share with me during the conversations I've had with other citizens during this journey that have said that they know others who've done the very same thing. So I would streamline the process and make sure that we're able to have a how can I help you get this started attitude versus you don't have everything you need attitude.
Thank you. Our next question is a three-statement question, and it comes from the Journal-Times. The city's population has been in a steady decline since the 1970s. In 1970, about 95,000 people lived in the city. Today, about 78,000 live here. With the population continuing to fall, what would you do as mayor to attract more people to our city? Not just to work, but to live and buy homes. And Reverend Hargrove, you are first.
I always go back to this analogy that my mother used when she said that if you want company to come to clean up your house. In other words, you must clean up your own house before you can have company come into your house. And I believe that's what we have to do in Racine. There's an issue that we have to deal with. We go back to jobs. You have to look at the fact that we have to be able to not only create jobs, because the mayor's office can't create jobs, but we can create an atmosphere where we can have jobs, have a skilled labor force ready to be able to work these jobs. That's going to attract some. We can also take downtown and begin to refurbish downtown. I mean, I walked through downtown and it's almost like a ghost town because a lot of the different areas, business areas that are actually closed up. You have to look at how do you clean up downtown. You have to look at also, and I am grateful to our police chief, Art Powell, who's been able to help with the crime reduction at a 50-year low. appreciate that, sit on the Police and Fire Commission. I was glad when we were able to bring him in as a chief, and he's been able to bring down Part 1 crimes, him and the RPD. So crime is going down, but you still have to be able to have jobs. You have to make sure you have a good education system. We're now poised with this latest referendum, with the help of Ray Mack and others, we're now poised to be able to actually make our education system better as well. So when you start looking at a better education system, you start looking at the ability to have an atmosphere of job production, you start looking at the fact of downtown being revitalized again, you start looking at the fact that crime is going down, then you can start making Racine, not you can say Racine now is attractive to those outside, but the most important is now attractive to those who are already here, and they'll help spread the word.
Thank you. Mayor Dickert.
Well, first of all, to kind of answer the last question a little bit and to get to this one. First of all, what we did in our inspections department was we did exactly what the Reverend just said. We combined and consolidated everything into one package. It's up at the inspections department, and stop by and see it. Each different organization has a different brochure. So if you want to start a restaurant, you get one brochure. It tells you everything, who to talk to, what the fees are. If you want to start a business downtown, it gives you all that has been done. It's already been done. It's sitting up at the inspections department. I encourage anyone to stop by and see the great work that they've done. The second thing is, if the decline in population, let's talk about the facts. The decline in population is, back when I was growing up here as well, 4.6 people were in the average family. Right now it's about 2.3 people in the average family. If those were the accurate numbers, the city of Racine would be at 50,000. We have more housing in the city of Racine than ever before. So the population is declining because the family size is declining. That's the reality of it. The reality is we have more housing here than ever. But how do you do that? How do you bring it together? Well, there's two things that are key components to this. One is you fix the transportation mechanism up and down the coast. What does that mean? Number one, getting commuter rail into our State Street station. Why? Because it will help that entire area grow. Number two, it allows people to move up and down the coast easier. Right now, we're looking at new ways to get to the I system, either 4 Mile Road or KR, putting a single lane out and in so we can move people quicker. But that's a short-term fix. We have got to get more transportation flowing up so that people can move up and down the coast cheaper and easier. Why? Because number one, they get access to the jobs up and down the coast. Number two, the tourism money moves up and down more freely. 72% of the people coming into our harbor are from Chicago. I should take advantage of it. The last thing is Machinery Row. We're developing over 150 new units there. If you want to talk about why we're developing things like that, to bring more people in one of the toughest areas of the city, we're building one of the biggest developments.
Thank you. Our next question is a citizen question. What is your vision for the city of Racine over the next 10 years? Mayor Dickert, go first.
Well, you know what that is, and we've been working through it for the last 6 years, and I'm proud to say we're about 75% of the way done. We have bigger challenges, though, ahead of us. There's no doubt about it. Pastor Harborough was talking about the fact that, downtown is a ghost town. I don't think the people downtown would agree with you, nor would I think they'd be happy about that. The fact is we have to bring more people in and getting them staying in downtown. Because when you do, and we're looking at a hotel for downtown. Why? Because when people come in and stay for a long term, they tend to, number one, spend more money, and number two, shop more. And that's what we need. Not additional retail downtown. We actually need more people being downtown. Racine Art Museum draws a lot of people in. Our summer events draw a lot of people in. But we've got to get them to stay. And one of those anchors for downtown that we have to have is a hotel to get them to stay there. So there are different projects like that that we're working on. Machinery Row, the development in the Walker site, the rest of the Blue River development. Those types of things we have to continue to work on. But I will tell you that it's no easy task to get developers in. The most important thing that we have to do is remind them of the great assets that we have. Best tasting water in the country, one of the top 200 beaches in the world, and an amazing downtown with a beautiful harbor that they can enjoy with some great restaurants and great people. We have an amazing community here. Everybody's working together to move it ahead, and I think we got to be positive about our future. Don't hesitate to look at the 10-year plan if you want to help out. Obviously, we're looking at people and partnerships to make sure that we build that. But we're working through it. We're 75% away through a project that's supposed to take 10 years. We've already made number 4 in the country for women-owned businesses and top 10 in reductions of crime. I think we're going a long way. I think we're doing it well. We have more work to do.
Thank you. Reverend Hargrove.
Real quickly, I will ensure that I set the record straight, and that is, I didn't say that it was a ghost town, I said it was like a ghost town when you have the business that are moved down. My vision for Racine is something simple, and that is, we need to have a thriving workforce. We have to have a thriving workforce. My vision for Racine in 10 years, if I'm re-elected for 10 years, is genuine partnerships. Because one thing I need to be very clear, when we say partnerships, a whole lot on the remainder of tonight, and here's why. Because partnerships is what's going to actually make this city better and make this city work. And I've shared this before, and I'll share this again. When you have Mount Pleasant, Sturtevant, and Caledonia as your neighbors, you have to understand that Caledonia can't make it without Racine City, neither can Racine City make it without Caledonia. We have to build strong partnerships. When we start building strong partnerships, now with those partnerships, you can go into some of the other areas so far as intergovernmental revenue sharing and all. That, to me, begins to, you begin to look at a city that is now going to actually be strong. So for me, my vision for the city is really a thriving workforce, but also genuine partnerships, because now it's an all of us versus us against them. We have to get to a point where we understand in this region that if we're not together, then separately we are going to perish. And so we have to be very careful and understand that I can't make it without Sturtevant, and certainly can't make it without Racine. And for me, what I see is a more genuine partnerly attitude toward all of the municipalities around here, but also I really see a thriving workforce and a better education system, and also more skilled laborers, so that we continue a better and brighter future. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is a Journal Times question. What do you view as the 3 biggest areas for improvement needed in city government? Reverend Hargrove, you're first.
Well, one thing, we have to right-size our budget. I believe right now, again, I'll use a little quirk, and that is that you can't have a steak appetite with a peanut butter and jelly budget. You can't. And so we have to right-size our budget. I believe that's very key. I believe that in order to right-size our budget, we have to have the right eyes on the budget. We have to have some articles on the budget that can really help us understand how to reduce this 32% growth in health care that we've actually experienced over the last 4 years, where the county has only experienced only 10%. How do we do that? And then look at not only right-sizing the budget in that way, we have to also look at the ability when it comes to, again, streamlining the process when it comes to small business through City Hall. I believe that has to be a little more clearer. I believe also when you look at the budget, you look at the revenue, you look at the debt. One of the other things we have to do from the city government standpoint now is we have to look at, are we able to begin to cross-train in other areas that will cause, we have to understand something, that eventually we're going to have to look at this tight budget. We're going to have to look at what are we going to need to do to continue to keep a positive line, as well as make sure that we can make the organization run. So you have to look at not only the rise in debt, but look at where the money was being spent. And where the decrease was so far as the public safety, not public safety, public works, parks and recs, and other property-type issues. So we have to look at the ability to be able to bring the department heads together to understand what needs to be done and create more efficiencies also in the budget, so we're not cutting, but we're also trying to look at how can we add revenue versus just simply cutting the budget.
Thank you. Mayor
Well,
Dicker.
first, I think we need to talk about where we are. The state and federal government have been cutting back the amount of money the city gets every year, and there's a cap on how much we actually have to spend. So in other words, the state said to us that if I'm your employer, I'm telling you you're never going to get a raise for the rest of your life. So how would you adjust to it? Well, eventually, your health care goes up, your cable goes up, your phone bill goes up, and you're never getting a raise, you have to cut. That's where the city is. But we did innovative things, like we did a joint dispatch. We brought everybody in from the region, and for the first time in 30 years, got joint dispatch done. It saved us millions of dollars. The other thing we did is we did right-size our budget. We actually worked with our long-term debt, and we are actually spending $1 million less in debt payments this year than we did 4 years ago. We right-size the debt because every year we reevaluate. And you don't bring in auditors to do that because you elect us to do that. Auditors just tell you if the numbers are right. They don't tell you how to run your policy, your budget. That's what you elect us to do. We're the elected officials. So you do that, and I think more importantly, you start working with those partnerships with the region, which we've been doing already, on important things like transportation, like doing joint fire, like joint borders, all those things that we've had conversations about already. The fact is, we just have to come to negotiation. But I will tell you what I will not do. In all those conversations with all those people around us, I will never have my taxpayers paying for their services. I won't do that. Because the reality is you're already paying enough. And you have paid for that infrastructure. So as much as I'm happy to work with the communities around me, I will never ask you to pay for them. Because I won't do that. So we're going to continue to streamline. Our people in City Hall are already cost-strained. The state cuts and the federal cuts have got us down to the bone. The reality is we're going to continue to look for the partnerships. We're going to continue to look to work with our neighbors in our region.
Thank you. Our next question is a citizen question. What are your thoughts about making Racine a more bike-friendly city, increasing bike lanes?
Well, we're actually already doing that. We have a study that we've brokered with the Bike Federation. The Bike Federation is coming in and doing a study on the City of Racine for a couple of reasons. Number one, because we're already looking at a regional partnership with the Tri-State Alliance to figure out how we can get more rail up to our area. But what the Bike Federation is doing is they're actually looking at a couple things. Most of our bike paths are not connected. So that's a disincentive for bike organizations and bike groups to come here to do tourism. The second thing is we actually want to give people an opportunity to see where the bike, quote, highways are in the city so that workers can ride their bikes to work and get out of the car. So when we put these two things together, that bike map, that plan, will be utilized so that every time we build a new road, that road has those bike paths already built in. So we're not only saving money, creating efficiencies, but by the time that we get done, the entire bike plan will be done. We're doing that because we've been talking about this for quite some time. You'll notice on your roads right now, when you drive around town, you will see bike lanes carved into the streets. They're already painted on there. You probably ask yourself, why does that end here? Well, it ends there because we built it right into the road. And as we rebuild the roads in the city, each bike path will then be connected. So what we're doing is we're creating efficiencies in everything that we do. Everything that we've talked about is built into our planning. We've already done this. Why? Because candidly we were forced to, but more importantly, it's the smart way to go. It saves money, allows our people to have a better quality of life, and more importantly, it attracts tourism to our city because they know we're a bike-friendly city.
Thank you. Robert Hartgrove?
Can you hear me back there? Okay, all right. I just want to make sure that do a little adjustments up here. Okay. Real quickly, I want to go back real quickly and share a couple of thoughts about the auditors. Yes, you elect us to make decisions, but you also elect us to take advice from the individuals who know best how to handle the books. And I believe in 2013, June 2013, we were downgraded by S&P for, quote, the lack of formalized long-term plan to right-size the general fund budget and stagnant local tax base. And that's what the auditors said. Now, the reason I stated about having new auditors is that if we've had people and accountants on the books for the last 8, 9 years, then we need to understand that evidently we need some fresh eyes to make sure that we're doing what needs to be done so we can spend our taxpayers' money the right way. That's why I made the statement about auditors. The other thing is that when you asked about the thoughts about making Racine a bike-friendly city, I think it's a great idea. It's recreational, it's healthy, I tell you what, I need to get on the bike every now and then to go my own self. But it's recreation is healthy, and it produces, again, more healthy citizens as well. So yeah, I think that it's a great idea to make it a bike-friendly city. That way, you know, just like Madison, sometimes I get upset at Madison only because, you know, you have to watch out for the bikers. You know? And it looks like they take over the lane a whole lot more than the cars. But in all seriousness, it's a good idea. We need to make it a bike-friendly town.
Thank you. Next question is our longest question, and it comes from the Journal Times. No editorial comment intended. With the city barred from raising taxes to pay for operations unless it sees significant new development, the city has turned more and more to borrowing over the last few years to finance items that were once paid for with dollars from the general fund levy. While these actions may free up limited operations funds, it means that with each passing year, more of the city's tax income must go to paying off debt. Is this the new normal for the city, or is there anything that can be done to keep the city from placing more and more costs onto the debt levy? Reverend Hargrove, you're first.
We have to look at the fact of long-term debt, short-term debt. We have to also think about the fact of borrowing for operational costs. Borrowing for operational costs is never a good thing. The reason why it's a good thing is because you can never get that back. It's going to continue to have to borrow for that. So to go back to answer the question, I would say that we need to look at how can we borrow less. We need to look at the CIP, I believe it is, the CIP, which is the capital improvements plan. What are some areas in the capital improvements plan that we may need to be able to kind of, you know, pull back on some to say, okay, we may not be able to borrow so much on this so that we make sure that our borrowing, you know, stays down. Because right now we are borrowing more for long-term debt than we should be borrowing. Now, but that was the figures were, so I won't put any numbers out there because I won't be quoted saying I got no numbers. But I do know our borrowing has increased. We have to look at how can we bring in, again, the revenue. And I know we talk about the TIFs, and we talk about the tax incremental, financing and tax incremental district. But one thing we have to understand, even with that, even with the $65 million development, we have to understand that only a portion of that actually goes back into the city and the city budget. In other words, all the new money, for lack of a better term, all the new money stays within the TIF or the TID. So you can develop all kinds of developments, but when that money stays in the TID, it doesn't really pay for the taxes for the city, for the Racine City, the school board, and other things. But figure out how can you increase the tax base as well with the new development and understanding that there is a certain portion that stays in the TID, but most of it, there's a certain portion that comes out of the TID, but most of it stays in there when it comes to the revenue. So it seems good, but when you look at it closely, it's not as good.
Thank you. Meredith.
Well, let's explain this. If the state would send you back your money, then we'd be all right. But they don't do that right now. They're not sending you back the money that you sent to them. And this year is a perfect example. One of the things that they're cutting again, from $19 million to $14 million, is the revenue that you send for recycling, you send to the state, they're not sending it back. That used to be $31 million that they would send back to us, the different cities throughout the state. They don't. And you have a levy cap, so you can't spend any more taxes. So what do? Well, what we've been doing is two things. Number one, streamlining City Hall. We've been streamlining our departments, and we're down to the bone now. There's nothing left. So what do you see in turn? What you see is service cuts. I'm not going to blow smoke here. The reality is, if this keeps up and the state continues to cut how much money they give us and we can't raise taxes, you're going to see your services cut. I've been saying this for 4 years, and we haven't been kidding. Now, the one thing that Pastor forgot to mention is, in that audit report that they talked about in 2013, they mentioned two other things in there. If I'm not wrong, they talk about the fact that the levy limit is one of the biggest disruptors of city government. And why? Because you can never, ever raise taxes. Number two was the housing crisis that we're dealing with, which, by the way, our housing initiatives have helped stabilize the housing in the city of Racine. And it's recognized by the Housing and Urban Development down in Chicago as one of the best programs they've seen. So what do we do to build back up our tax base? Yes, we do short-term capital, long-term debt. We do because you have been doing it for years. The city of Racine has been doing short-term borrowing for years. But the fact is, when you look at the overall long-term debt, it's actually pretty much the same and has been for quite some time. The figures are not out of whack, and they're not tremendously large. The only way we get out of the situation that we're in right now is to build new development. It's the only option we have.
Thank you. Our next question is a RAMAC question. With resources becoming more limited, do you believe it is more important to find opportunities to consolidate or collaborate with other local governments? If so, give specific areas where you can see this occurring. Mayor Dickert, you're first.
Yeah, it's the ones that we already talked about. We've already had this conversation. And we were pretty close about 4 years ago. We got joint dispatch done. We were working on joint fire and joint borders because, candidly, when you look at areas like the JIK site, that's the empty site on the southern end, that's actually not in the city of Racine. We'd like to get access to that site because it allows us 125 acres to build on. But we're very, very good at brownfields and pulling in EPA money to the brownfields to clean those sites up so that we can use them again. So we'd actually like to get access to that, but unfortunately, we haven't been able to come to an agreement. And we haven't been able to come to an agreement with our surrounding areas on things like joint fire, borders, and services. Now, I will tell you this. I'm going to go back to what I said before. We haven't come to an agreement because I'm not going to make you spend your money to expand there. We got joint dispatch done. And how do we do it? Because we all came to the table and we all gave something. So my job is to protect you, the taxpayers of Racine, and I'm going to do that. If we can do joint services, expand our borders, do joint fire, you bet your bottom dollar we're going to do it. Why? Because just doing a couple of those can save us up to $4 million a year in this region. $4 million a year. Do you think we want to do that? Absolutely. But I'm not going to risk you paying more to do that. I can't do that. Otherwise, I'm not representing you. And to say that we're going to do that for others, it's not being honest with people. You got to be honest with people. If we can do it, we would. So we're going to continue to look at those things, but I will tell you the things we've been successful at that we're going to continue to work on, and I'm really happy to announce. We had the $200,000 come in from the EPA. Why? Because for 5 years, we've been working with them to show them what we're doing and how they can work as partners. It also goes back to the relationships. Those relationships were built over 20 years. So we're going to continue to do things like that. And I will always partner with people wherever it can save us all money, but we have to partner on it.
Thank you. Reverend Hargrove.
Could you repeat that one?
Yes. With resources becoming more limited, do you believe it is more important to find opportunities to consolidate or collaborate with other local governments? If so, give specific areas where you can see this occurring.
Yes, again, you hear me talk about the term partnership all the time. And I believe that, I don't just use that word very lightly. We have to, I say that all things are on the table for that type of collaboration. We look at not just the police and fire or not just some local issues, but look at even, are there areas where we can look at with the zoo, where we have all municipalities using the zoo, all municipalities using the museum, all municipalities that are using the library. We already have a library, I believe, this library agreement with other municipalities. Can we stretch that? Can we use that in other areas of the city as well when it comes to some of the shared services that they receive coming into the city? But I want to go back to it quickly, though, on the comment that the mayor made about, that the only way option is development. We have to be very careful about that. And I don't want, again, I'm trying my best not to be doom and gloom here. We have to be very careful because Detroit tried that. Detroit tried that. They tried to develop a way out of the debt, and eventually they became bankrupt because they had more development and no revenue. We have to be very careful because development sounds great. And please, understand, I'm not against development. I'm not against development whatsoever. But there's a time for it. And you can't develop your way out of this right now. It's impossible. You have to be able to create jobs. You have to be able to have business. You have to be able to go to the table with the business and find out what can they do to help bring in the job. You have to go to the table with Unified and other areas. How do you help create or strengthen our skilled workforce? All of these have to take place as well. So I just want to make sure, I just want to be clear about the development piece. Not against it. I think we need to go a little bit further than just that. But then, again, all things on the table. What can we look at as far as shared revenue in other areas of Racine, and not just, police and fire, and not just what we have now with dispatch?
Thank you. Our next question is a RAMAC question. What do you feel the City of Racine can do to attract new businesses and new jobs? Reverend Hargrove, you're first.
I believe that what can happen is, again, I sit on the school board, and we just passed, again, the biggest referendum in Racine that I know of, again, with the help of RAMAC and other business constituents as well as the community. And one of the things we have to do is we have to look at being able to redevelop a skilled, I'm going to keep going back to that, a skilled workforce. We have jobs that are here receiving now. But part of the problem is that we don't really have the people or enough people, we don't have enough people in the skill that are skilled, the soft skills as well as hard skills. Hard skills meaning knowing how to operate a machine. Soft skills meaning that they need to know how to not just get a job, but keep it down. So you have to look at how do you develop that skill base. How do you then, again, go to the table with the businesses in Racine and find out what are they looking for. One thing, I just came back from a site visit in Nashville, Tennessee, and we were looking at doing a model that's called Career Path. You start at 9th grade, and you try to get the 9th grader focused on where he or she wants to be when they get out of high school, deliberately and purposely. And Nashville is actually doing this, and they're coming together with their business community, and they're actually making this happen. I would like to see a model like that even come to Racine. So that way you look at now the educational piece, the business is on board, education is on board, and the community is on board to make sure that we can have the skilled labor that's necessary for that. Then other companies will see that we now have, we're attractive, that we have people who can work and people who will work and not quit a job.
Thank you. Mayor Dicker.
Sure. First of all, I think that education is incredibly important, but I think you have to lead by example. One of the things that I've been doing over the last couple of years is I've read to 103 classrooms and talked to the kids about the future of their education and the importance of reading. Because I think you have to lead by example. You have to let those young people know that their education is their future. The workforce is imperative. We have to build our workforce back up, and that's going to take a lot of education and training. Why? Because we have an unskilled workforce right now that is not ready to move into a 21st century job. So we need to partner with them and work with them. Now, one of the things that we're doing is two things regarding how we get people back to work. The first one is Racine First. It's a program that we created at City Hall that says if we incentivize or we help out any business or organization coming into Racine, you have to hire our people. And that incentive is based on how many people you hire from the City of Racine. The second thing is, as we meet with our new developers and businesses coming into Racine, we put together either PLAs, which is public labor agreements, so that they're working with our public laborers, our local laborers, or we work with them to make sure that if they're located in one area of the City of Racine where we're hard hit for unemployment, that we then draw our workforce from that area. Now, if you work on those agreements on the front end, the developers and investors are not concerned about it because they know it's part of what they have to do. But it's going to take an immense amount of training, it's going to take time, it's going to take effort, and you have to be committed to that. We've been committed to that in every project that we've done. That's why we introduced Racine First, and that's why we're working with businesses to help rebuild communities together. We don't just go into an area and say we're going to drop a business here and hope they employ. We mandate that they employ and work to keep a skilled labor force, and if they're not skilled, to train them while they're working.
Thank you. Our next question is a RAMAC question. What would be your priorities in terms of budgeting. That is, if cuts have to be made, what is touchable and what is untouchable? Mayor Dickert, you're first.
Well, I think I've been dealing with this for 6 years, so I pretty much know what's untouchable is lights. So what are we doing about that? I will tell you what we're doing about it. It's not enough to say that we cut street lights because we have to. We're working on a public-private partnership so that we can actually, 2/3 of our lights, by the way, are rented for the entities. So we're working on a public-private partnership to work with a private organization to put in all LED lights wherever we want them. We'll own them, same amount of cost to the city residents, but we put in LEDs that save us 69 to 72% in energy costs per year, but we own them. That way, we can put lights wherever we want to, rather than wherever we Energies has got them. That's the first thing. The second thing that we're doing is, give me the question about just what you're going to cut.
What is touchable and what is untouchable?
Well, obviously we know what is untouchable, which is basically police and fire. Why? Because one of the things that businesses look at when they locate in your city, they ask me 3 questions for the most part. Number 1, what's your workforce? Number 2, what's your quality of life? And number 3, what's your transportation system? So if we're going to have a safe city, which we do have, rated as, like I said, one of the top 10 in the country, we've got a good group. But if we cut back on those, here's the other thing that the business community knows. If an ambulance goes out to you right now, it's 3 to 4 minutes before it gets to you. 3 to 4 minutes. In the communities around us, it's anywhere from 7 to 10 minutes. That's one thing that the business community looks at when they want to locate in the city. If there's a problem, how fast are you going to be there? So obviously that's untouchable. So what do we do with the rest of it? We look at partnering. We had to cut back our time on our community centers. So it's just, instead of saying, you know what, we're going to cut back time, we reached out to 15 organizations in our city, nonprofits and the like through the United Way, and said, how, instead of cutting back, how are we going to build our community centers so that they're so great that actually they're outpacing everything that we're doing? Those types of partnerships are what we're going to have to do moving forward.
Thank you. President Hargrove.
The question probably should say what should be untouchable and what should be touchable. Because the way that the budget is going and what we're having, as long as we continue to have flatline revenue, something's going to be touchable. Now, quality of life issues should never be touchable. But unfortunately, they're going to be touchable. Quality of life issues such as police and fire. Quality of life issues such as public works. Quality of life issues such as even the parks and rec. I would love to tell you that nothing is untouchable. But the reality is that, unfortunately, it's all touchable, and it shouldn't be. The only way that we can make that untouchable is going to, again, have to begin to raise revenue. Now, one thing that can be touchable can be that 32% hike in healthcare costs, figuring out how can we use the tools that we were given in the Act 10 to be able to bring those back down. Because obviously, we didn't use those correctly because our healthcare costs went up, where the county and states went up only about 10% over the last 4 years. So things like that can be touchable. How can we get a better program? How can we get a better carrier? I don't know what needs to happen with that. I do know that we need to come to the table and find out how can you do the IRP process and something like that happen. Now, of course, that's not all the budget. But when you start looking at touchable versus untouchable, I would love to say that there are certain things that are untouchable. And in my opinion, and in my belief, quality of life issues are always untouchable. But the reality at this point, because of the revenue that we have coming in, that all of it is still very much touchable until we're able to streamline what we're doing with our budget process. And you're going to have to be creative in it. You're going to have to be courageous in the fact that you're going to have to share some hard news with people as well. But at the end of the day, you have to be able to compassionately share. Share the vote.
Thank you. Our last question is a RAMAC question. What are some things local government can do to reduce the cynicism people have towards government? Reverend Hargrove, your first.
I believe that one thing that local government can do to reduce the cynicism of the citizens, which I've ran into as I've been campaigning, so I believe that you have to walk in integrity. You have to be transparent in your dealings, let the people know what's going on, and then also not only open your door to them, but maybe you go knock on their doors occasionally, and not only during campaign season, but occasionally, and then invite them into a conversation that needs to be had so they can hear what's on their minds as well. That's how you begin to reduce cynicism, because now they get to know you as not just a leader or a mayor, but they know you as a person, and they begin to trust you because they know that you have their best interests at heart, and that at the end of the day, it's not about you, but it really is about how do you develop a quality of life for all of them.
Okay.
What are some things local government can do to reduce the cynicism people have towards government?
I think the first thing that you do is you make sure that you talk with people. A lot of people say it's crazy to do. I like to drive around town and stop and get out of my car and walk up to people's porches and talk to them about what's going on. I've walked in every single street in this city and talk to people. And I go, and probably most of you know that, I go to probably more events than any person on the planet to find out, and Jim's laughing because he knows, because if you want to find out what's going on, you talk to people. Bless you. I've done doors every single weekend since this campaign started. When it was 41 below and I was out doing doors, somebody said, "Are you crazy?" I said, "No, I need to hear from you, and this is what I do." I've done them every year, and I go to events every year. Why? Because if you want to really find out what somebody's thinking, you talk directly to them. Now, the budget is online. Not only is it online, it's been out there forever. And more importantly, when we started this last budget process, because we were dealing with a lot of issues, I invited the aldermen in to say 9 months in advance, let's sit down and go through everything to determine what we think we can do collaboratively to make this happen. 9 months in advance. 4 people showed up. We've done community meetings around town. We've done them in our community centers. We've done them on floodplain areas. We've done them on community meetings on a great deal of things. And the reality is, the cynicism, I think, is because when people look at what we're doing, they get upset when they see cuts coming down because they can't understand it. Our job as a mayor is to deal with it. We can't blame, we can't just simply say, well, that's it, I'm not going to deal with it. We have to deal with our budget because we have to balance our budget every year, which takes tough decisions every day. But that's our job. That's what we do. So we continue to do it. And why? Because what you have to say matters.
Thank you. Robert Harpo. I'm sorry. I had everything marked off, and the last one I moved. So we will go to the closing statements now, and we'll reverse the order. So Robert Harpo will go first for his closing statement.
I have a favorite movie that I watch, and the movie is called John Adams, and it's an HBO movie. I'm a history buff. I love history. In that movie, right before they got ready to sign the Declaration of Independence, the king from England sent an edict to them saying that if you don't stop the cease and desist, you will all be hanged. And so in that movie, Benjamin Franklin said, we can either all hang together and build a government, or we're going to all hang separately. But be sure that we will hang. So I said to say this, Ben Franklin said that if we hang together, we can build a government. I go back to the concept of partnership. If we hang together here in this city and in this county, we can build and revitalize Racine City, and not just Racine City, but also Racine County. I go back to partnerships. I go back to the fact that we have to have genuine and honest partnerships in order for this to happen. We have to go back to also speaking truth and let people know where we are, the reality of where we are, and as well as where we want to go. I believe that as a leader, I have those qualities. I will speak candid. I will be very candid with you. I will let you know where we stand as a city. I will also be very courageous and tell you what we can and cannot do. I will also be compassionate and let you know, even after I've told you what we can and cannot do, best to try to compassionately implement whatever, as painless as possible, what needs to happen in the city. But at the end of the day, as mayor, I want to make sure that I am enhancing the quality of life for all of the citizens of Racine City, and even being able to reach out and also make that happen for her neighbors as well. So you will get that if you elect me as mayor.
Mayor Bickert.
I think you always have to remember one thing in this job. You have to do what's right. You have to do what's right for your people. You have to do what's right for the future generations. And you have to do what's right for those who are in need the most. The handicapped, indigent, the elderly. You know, I started this journey 6 years ago, looking at my son and trying to determine what kind of city he would want when he grows up, because it was 10 years by the time he'd be leaving. We designed a plan around that, not only for him, but for all your kids. All these little ones sitting in the front row. Why? Because you have to do long-term planning. You have to set up the goals and agendas of the future to be able to work the plan. Because in everyday life of being a mayor, the day changes instantly. And the firefighting is nonstop, and I don't mean from the firefighters, I mean in City Hall. There's always fires to put out. So we work the plan. We put a plan together on housing and redevelopment of our areas. Root works uptown and in the future, Douglas Avenue. Why? Because we want to make sure that we build those areas up, because we've been told by the state that our revenue coming in will never change. We make sure that we work in partnership with the business community and the educational community to create a better workforce, designed around the business community and their needs, because the reality is they're the ones hiring. But more importantly, we work with the business community to make sure that we can help them grow. Why? Because you don't ask them while they're leaving if they want to stay. We help build them where they are. And that's why unemployment has been cut at levels unseen in this area. We've cut it in half in 5 years. So we work with those things. We work with housing. We redesign a housing partnership, not only about redesigning areas and neighborhoods, but also in partnerships with First Choice Pre-Apprenticeship and the pastoral program. All of these things are done long-term. Why? Because number one, you can see it, and you can see where we're going. But number two, because it's the only way that we're going to rebuild the city, is rebuilding it together.
That'll conclude our debate today. I want to thank both Reverend Hargrove, Mayor Bickert. Thank you very much for participating. Thank you, Supervisor Miller, for being a moderator. Obviously, I want to thank the Journal-Times for being a co-sponsor along with Raymac. We're going to quickly switch lines here, just like hockey. We're going into the new line here, and the county executive candidates will be up in a couple of minutes. But thank you, everybody, for your attendance.
No problem.